Hi there everyone, I'm Zan from Felon Fair, and today's video is going to be on choosing the right kind of quiver for whatever you're doing. Now, no matter if you're designing a character for a film or for a reenactment or a LARP or a cosplay, or even if you're just an artist or an author who's looking to learn a little bit about different types of quivers and your different options, we hope you'll find this video helpful. A quick disclaimer, I'm not making any major historical claims here. I don't want to get into that fight. This is just my experience, what works well for me, my observations, and quivers and their different application throughout history and their crossover application into kind of different fantasy realms and practical application, used for LARPs and that sort of stuff. So once again, not looking to have a historical debate or a historical fight here. I believe there's a lot of misinformation out there around quivers on both ends of the spectrum. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't worry about it, and I hope you find this video useful. If you do, please subscribe to our channel. That helps us make more videos. Please like, and then please comment. If you have questions, if you want to see more videos, if there's more information you want to learn, please comment on those videos, and we'll try to get back to you and hopefully produce some good content that you will find helpful. Anyway, welcome. All right, so when you're dealing with archery, you've got to think of the context for the archer itself. So whether you're writing a book, whether you're doing a LARP, anything like that, what is going to, and it's something we're constantly reminding people here at Felon Fair, but function equals believability. So a quiver, no matter how cool it looks, if the archer can't use it, they can't use it believably, or if it doesn't look like it fits in the environment, whether that's a fantasy environment, a historical environment, then people just aren't going to, they're just not going to appreciate the hard work that you're putting into whatever your creation is, simply because they kind of can't actually believe that it works because the archer doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. So always err on the side of a well-functioning product. And I'll kind of show you how we've done that with some of the things we're showing you here. Now, throughout history and the fantasy world, there's basically kind of two options when it comes to ways to carry your arrows. Now, this really depends on, once again, what the archer is doing. Is this somebody who's part of an army, who's going to be standing on a field and launching volley after volley of arrows, or is this a woodsman who's running around through the forest, or something in between, maybe somebody who does a little bit of both? So you want something that's going to work well for that context. So the two types of arrow carrying systems generally found throughout history are arrow bags and quivers. Arrow bags are sometimes leather, but they're more often cloth or waxed canvas, and then you have, or waxed linen, and then you have the quiver, which is usually made out of leather. It's usually a bit stiffer, and it's worn either at the waist or over the shoulder. So there's a couple different options there, and we'll kind of go into those. So we'll start with arrow bags. Now, I'm a big fan of arrow bags for several reasons. One, they just look cool. Two, they're very, because of kind of their lightweight and maneuverable form or material, they can be worn in several different ways. So I've got a couple different here. This is a waxed canvas arrow bag we made. Now, the advantage of this one is, you can see you can actually draw this waxed canvas up over your arrows, so that will keep rain off. It's also got an attachment point here, so I can actually just run this loop through a belt and wear it there at my side. It's also got a point down here, so I can either wear it so that I can actually strap it and wear it on the small of my back horizontally, or I can bring it over my shoulder right here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and address this elephant in the room before I go on. The whole waist quiver versus back quiver thing. There's a whole debate. There's a Lars Anderson video a couple years ago. Lots of people got mad. Lots of people got upset. There's historical precedent for both in medieval Europe and other places. So before somebody's going to comment, oh, people never wore back quivers. No, people wore. There's paintings in the Bayeux Tapestry of people wearing back quivers. There's plenty of historical precedent. I think waist quivers were more common for war archers, and there's a lot to be said for waist quivers and arrow bags, but there is historical precedent for shoulder quivers. Fight me. Well, please don't. Actually, I'm tired of this. Okay, so you can, and the designs that we found of arrow bags made like this, and you can wear them over the shoulder. There's some great times when you would want to wear them over the shoulder. So this is where we'll get into, once again, the context for your archer. Honestly, I have found moving through the woods, moving through the forest, over the shoulder is the better option. Now, once again, if you've seen that Lars Anderson video, you have the ridiculous thing of somebody jumping over a log and all the arrows spill out, and yes, I've had that happen. I've also happened when I've been running through the forest and the arrows hit a branch and just the whole quiver just rips off my back. I've had that happen too. It's something you definitely have to get used to and adjust to. But I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, and I have found that moving through the forest with a properly seated and properly adjusted back quiver, it is your best option. The number one reason why is very often if you're running through the forest, not only are you holding your longbow, but you've got a sword or an axe or a knife, something else, or a pouch at your waist, and you can't be flopping and having everything going everywhere as you're running through the forest. So if you've got it securely fastened to your back, then those arrows aren't going anywhere, especially if you have a bag either inside your quiver or just a bag that you can tie up your arrows. They're not going to fall out if you bend over or anything like that. If I can find, once again, if I can find a solution, if I can look at an arrow or a quiver and think, how can spend 5 minutes figuring out how to not have the arrows fall out of the back quiver, medieval people could do that too. We're not that much smarter than them, all right? So the very easy solution, you'll see this on some of our leather quivers, we just include arrow bags with the leather quivers. You just take that over, tie it up, they're not going anywhere, or just cinch it right here. Those arrows aren't going anywhere. So it's a great middle of the road solution. So anyway, I found that shoulder quivers in the forest are great because that way, if you have one by your waist, then you've got to hold that and hold your sword or your axe or your woodsman's axe or your whatever and your bow. So usually you're holding a bow and something else in one hand and then something else in the other hand, and you're running through the forest like this, which means if you have to climb, if you trip, you're gonna have to let go of something to, it's gonna be harder to keep your balance. So moving stealthily through the woods, I found shoulder quiver is the best option. Rant complete. Historically speaking, I think especially woodsmen, that sort of stuff, they would have found that as a good option, or kind of the small of the back, keeping them really tight to their waist would be another good option. So arrow bags can do both. This is an arrow bag that we made. It's canvas, but you see we have this leather disc inside it with holes. So this is nice because it keeps the arrows separated and doesn't smush them together. So especially if the fletchings get wet, they don't all stick together and get deformed. There's some downsides in that sometimes it's harder to re-index your arrows or return your arrows to the quiver. And then also sometimes, if they're broadheads and stuff, you actually have to kind of spin them around. And now another thing you can do is all our quivers are open at the bottom too, so you can actually untie this and pull the arrows through the other way. There's a lot of historical precedents for that. But then you have to have holes that are big enough that the fletchings can come through without ripping off, which means you can hold fewer arrows. Anyways, there's pluses and minuses to each option. For this arrow bag, we just simply took a metal ring and then attached it. So that kind of keeps it spaced out. It keeps it from squinching it, gives it some form there without having to thread each arrow through that leather disc. So that's arrow bags. I think they're very versatile. The other great thing is that, especially if you're making them, usually the materials can be pretty inexpensive. Now, if you are looking for LARP something or other, arrow bags I have found are not a great option. Why? Because they're flimsy and LARP arrows are really heavy on the tips. They flop everywhere. And a good solution that I have found, though, is this is actually a sword bag from Epic Armory. This is one of the greatest hidden secrets that Epic Armory has. I don't know why everybody doesn't own 12. But I found that these are really great because what you can do is you can wear a leather quiver either at your waist or on your shoulder and keep 5 to 8 arrows there. And then you can keep another 20 in here and just wear this around your waist or over your shoulder. And then whenever you have a moment, just kind of hide back behind a tree, grab a couple out, stick them into your quiver, swap them out. But it's a great way to store and transport arrows. You can see you can tie it up here. So this is an awesome, just another way to use an arrow bag. So once again, if you're a writer or if you're somebody trying to figure out how all of this works, arrow bags were also used just as storage and transport, especially the ones that have the discs that keep the arrows from getting smushed. So, you know, a lot of times archers would carry one over their shoulder and 2 or 3 at their waist, or one on their right hip and the others kind of bundled somewhere else so that they could have all these reserves if they were going into battle and would need to shoot dozens or even hundreds of arrows. Now moving over to quivers and leather, well, we'll kind of do the crossover mix here. So this is an arrow kind of quiver, kind of bag. It's leather. Now unlike those other ones, it doesn't have the double attachments. It just has, well, it does have 2 attachments just here on the side. And this one I like to wear actually slung over the shoulder like this, just like anything else. Now it doesn't flop around quite as much, which is nice because it's got those 2 points. But this is another great way to draw straight from the waist. You can also kind of slip it over here to the back, especially if you need to fight. You don't want something getting in your way. And then also, of course, if you needed to, you know, there's just, it's very easy to take on and off, which sometimes if they're tied to your waist or your belt, that can be a pain. This is also a good option for LARP arrows because it's long enough and deep enough. Now, if you stick enough arrows, a lot of times they will get top heavy. But I found that a lot of people, they just put weights, like 1 or 2 pound weights in the bottom of their quiver, and that keeps them from flopping around all over the place. Here, for example, is a quiver from Epic Armory. It's just a really simple quiver with several LARP arrows. This is about as many as you can keep in. You can wear this over your shoulder without it being too obnoxious. But then you just carry one of these at your waist, or 2 or 3, or you know, you have a squire, or just put a bunch of them on a cart and have somebody tow them around for the whole army. And that's a great way to kind of restock without. And I've seen guys with LARP quivers, and they've got like 40 arrows, and there's just this giant monstrosity on their back, which that works fine if you're running into a battle, but it can be a little bit of a pain if you're trying to move stealthily through the woods, that sort of stuff. Now, when it comes to some other quiver options, this is an Epic Armory quiver right here. This is a waist quiver. It's called their Wildling quiver, I believe. It's a pretty good option. It's got a nice big throat. It's kind of that mix of leather and canvas. It's a great waist quiver. And then my, honestly, like I said, personal favorite for moving through the woods is a back quiver. So this is a back quiver I made, and it goes over your shoulder and just buckles this way. Now, once again, this is what works well for me. Just because it works well for me doesn't mean it will work well for you or for your character. Or for your historical context. So, like I said, this is just what works well for me. So I found that if the straps are directed properly, and this is where I highly recommend, if you're going to spend money on a piece of gear, quivers are really good ones. So a lot of times get it custom made or get it made by an artisan who really knows archery and really knows your size and how to adjust this to your shooting style and that sort of stuff. So I really like this back quiver option. It's got easy draw, easy access. You don't get the thing like in the video, in the Lars Anderson video, where the guy's like, well, where did it go? I mean, they're right here. There's another great thing is because the throat of it is right here, if I can't find them, I can always go right there. And actually, rather than drawing up here, which is harder to get to, you just train yourself to go right back here and grab the shaft a little lower down, and you can pull it out, draw, you're good to go. So, and then of course, you know, with things like this, if I wanted to wear it at my waist, I could just basically tighten this down a lot, run a waist or run it through a belt, and then you have that waist option as well. The thing you do have to worry about is things now, and the more arrows you have in this, especially if you have nice big, thick broadheads, they will, you know, give you a lot of weight down there, and they will keep you, they'll keep it kind of bottom heavy to keep the arrows from flying all over the place. But then, once again, you have that arrow bag in there that helps keep them secure. Well, folks, that's all the quivers I have for you today. I hope that helps. I'm sure I created more questions than I answered, so feel free to ask those down in the comments. Please do like and subscribe to the channel, and I'd love to continue the discussion. If you disagree with me, that's fine. You're welcome to. I believe there's a lot of ambiguity, both in history and in historical archery. So sometimes it's just do your best and just, you know, don't rag other people too much. I ragged on Lars Anderson a little bit. Dude's a super talented archer, and honestly, from what I've heard, the views expressed in the video were not all his. There were some of the stuff that were kind of made by some other folks that made it sound a little more extreme as well. So, go out there, and here's the bottom line with all of this stuff. No matter if you're using a bag, a quiver, if you're not practicing, if you're not training, you're not going to be able to use any of them well. If you're not like, you've probably heard the story about Viggo Mortensen when he was training for the Lord of the Rings. He walked around New Zealand. Everywhere he went, he carried that sword with him. Daniel Day-Lewis, when he was training for Last of the Mohicans, carried the flintlock around for like 9 months, just so that everywhere he moved, every way he handled it, he was really familiar with it. It's the same thing with this sort of equipment. No matter if it's a bag, a waist bag, a shoulder thing, if you practice enough and if you use it enough, you'll get used to it and you'll be able to function properly. And once again, that function will equal believability. So whether that is as an actor, whether that is as a LARPer, anything like that, that's what's going to, there's a YouTuber that I follow that likes to say, he says, the most important thing is looking cool. And if you don't train, if you don't practice, you're not going to look cool. So, try to look, if you're going to look cool, you got to practice, you got to train. And hopefully that will help you achieve the goal that you're going for. Once again, thank you for joining us, everybody, and have a great day.